it's Rowlands and I'm a nutritional balancing practitioner, and in this video I'm going to talk about copper toxicity. Copper toxicity is a hidden menace in today's world. The biggest issue with copper toxicity is that no one really understands it. The second issue is that it's very hard to test for. In fact, a hair mineral analysis is one of the only ways to test for copper toxicity, and even then, it usually shows up as normal or low, so you have to understand a hair mineral analysis test to fully understand whether a person's toxic in copper or not. Do you suffer from brain fog, fatigue, constipation, spaciness, racing mind, PMS, headaches, trouble sleeping, depression, anxiety, rashes, white spots on the fingernails, slow wound healing, learning disorders, bleeding gums, schizophrenia, fibromyalgia, fatigue, cancer, anemia, acne, irritability, and much more? If you can say yes to a few of those, then you probably suffer from copper toxicity. Actually, you'd be very surprised how many people actually suffer from copper toxicity these days. A lot of people believe that zinc is the issue, and in many ways they're correct. Zinc deficiency is often a big case with people who suffer from copper toxicity, but it's not the whole case. In fact, copper toxicity is a very complex subject, and unfortunately it's not as simple as supplementing zinc in order to balance out copper. A few years ago I suffered terribly from copper toxicity, even though I wasn't fully aware of it. Now, I started a nutritional balancing program, and really for the first few tests my copper was actually low, but all of a sudden my copper shot through the roof, and this is a sign of hidden copper toxicity. And as a nutritional balancing practitioner, I see this time and time again. Usually what happens when people get copper toxicity is that there's a breakdown of the adrenal glands and the liver function. Now, the adrenal glands in the liver are very important in order to balance out copper. There's many reasons why this happens. For a lot of people it's stress, for a lot of people it's various toxicities. For some people it's things like anger, resentment can actually cause a lot of stress on the adrenals and the liver. For other people it's alcoholism, smoking, etc. Okay, so here's the confusing part. People can be deficient in copper but also toxic at the same time. Confusing? Exactly. So the word copper toxicity is used quite a lot, and in reality it's a little bit misleading, because in reality what happens is that copper is bio-unavailable. Now, this happens when the adrenal glands are not functioning correctly, and it cannot send signal to the liver to create protein carriers that bind to copper. Now, these protein carriers in the liver are very important, and the main one in copper toxicity is ceruloplasmin. And ceruloplasmin is a copper binding protein that is needed. So when the adrenal glands are weak, it's just not sending out signals to the liver to create these very important proteins. In this section, I'm going to talk about reading copper on a hair mineral analysis test. Now, usually we see tests and the copper is fairly high, which is obviously an easy indicator of copper toxicity. On this one, this person's copper was 9.6. Usually the person's also in something called slow oxidation. However, on tests, a lot of the time copper is low. In this case, we need to figure out whether a person's got hidden copper toxicity or not. Luckily, with a hair mineral analysis test, we have over 20 indicators. For example, calcium level above 70, potassium level below 4, copper level below 1.5, this is a really good indicator, phosphorus less than 13. If we scroll down, we've got mercury above 0.03, the NAK ratio is less than around 2.5/1, and the potassium is above 10.1. Other indicators are a 4 lows pattern, so this is when all 4 macro minerals are below their ideal level. A bowl pattern, where the graph looks like a bowl shape. This is a bad example. A better example would be something like that. Copper on this is again below 1.5. Potassium is below 4. This is also an indicator of sympathetic dominance. This is when a person is in fight or flight. This is also another good indicator of copper toxicity. If we scroll down, this person's NAK ratio again is below 2.5/1. Their mercury level is above 0.03, and their calcium potassium level is above 10/1. We have other indicators: a step down pattern, a zinc level above 20, also a zinc level below 13, a magnesium level above 10, and a 4 highs pattern where all 4 macro minerals are above their ideal level. Other indicators are slow oxidation with a copper level less than 1, a double low ratio, a passive aggressive pattern, wasting one's time or biding one's time pattern, stress from within and without, and an extreme lifestyle stress pattern. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of indicators for hidden copper toxicity that we can see on a hair mineral analysis test. As I say, it's very, very hard to test for copper. Probably the best way to test for copper is a liver biopsy test, but obviously that's very invasive. So a hair mineral analysis test is very non-invasive, inexpensive, and a fantastic way of figuring out whether someone has copper toxicity or not. Copper has a lot to do with the women's reproductive system. It is called the love mineral and the emotional mineral because it is central to being a woman. It is needed for women's fertility and to maintain pregnancy. In fact, copper imbalance is associated with every single female organ related difficulty, such as premenstrual syndrome, ovarian cysts, uterine fibroid tumours, infertility, miscarriages, other menstrual problems, no sex drive, too much sex drive, and estrogen balances. Copper also causes chaos on the central nervous system. If you're an emotional wreck, likelihood it's copper. But remember, it won't show up on most blood tests, urine tests, or even hair tests unless you look for hidden copper indicators on the hair test. Technically, too much copper stimulates production of the neurotransmitters. It is also needed for correct serotonin production. As a result, copper is deeply involved with all disorders of the central nervous system. These include memory loss, especially in young people, depression, anxiety, attention deficit, hyperactivity, autism, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and others. The glandular system, particularly the thyroid and adrenal glands. The thyroid gland is extremely sensitive to copper. Common conditions associated with copper imbalance include hyperthyroidism and Hashimoto's disease. Copper is also associated with some cases of Graves' disease or hyperthyroidism. Bones and connective tissue. Copper is required to fix calcium in the bones and to build and repair all bones and all connective tissue. Connective tissue means tendons, ligaments, skin, hair, nails, arteries, veins, and a few other tissues. Copper toxic people are quite often spiritually orientated. There exists a high copper personality. Positive traits include a warm, caring, sensitive, emotional nature, often with artistic orientation and a childlike quality. High copper people are young looking. Many traditionally feminine traits are associated with copper, such as softness, gentleness, and intuitiveness. This may relate to the qualities of metallic copper, which include softness, malleability, and an excellent conductor of electricity. When the personality is not fully integrated, or the copper becomes too high, negative traits show up. These include spaciness, racing thoughts, living in a dream world, and naivety. Others include childishness, excessive emotions, sentimentality, a tendency to depression, fearfulness, hidden anger and resentments, phobias, psychosis, and violence. Artists, inventors, and other high copper types often live on the edge, in part due to their copper level. The copper personality tends to accumulate copper easily. Copper can function as a psychological defense mechanism. It causes one to detach slightly from reality. This provides relief from stress for the sensitive individual. It works well as long as the copper doesn't become too high. Very high copper can cause a psychotic break from reality, a type of schizophrenia. So that's copper toxicity in 10 minutes. Balancing out copper is very, very precise, which is the reason why most people find it extremely difficult. I used the Nutritional Balancing program to balance out my copper level. Nutritional Balancing has been around for over 40 years, and these people are experts in figuring out how to balance copper, and even then it can be quite tricky to come out. We find that common things like supplementing zinc, chelation therapy, hormone therapy, unfortunately just doesn't work too well at all. We find that what's needed is a full healing holistic program, which includes diet, detoxification, lifestyle, supplementation, meditation, and body work. We find that it's like a jigsaw puzzle where every piece of the jigsaw has to be put in place for copper to fully balance itself. So if that sounds good to you, then please get in touch and start a nutritional balancing program today.